the triangle is a more rapid growth, more explosive growth, less organized growth, where the upward angles on the triangles tend to be that organization of knowledge, the utilization, the orientation. The reds are very similar, and you may notice that sometimes you feel like you are now at 12 to 15 dealing with a 0 to 3-year-old in a bigger body. Emotions are bigger. In fact, Montessori called this the spiritual embryo. So this person, the social embryo, the beginning stages of adulthood. And so we will find ourselves where in the very youngest ages, they love the work just to do. In that 6 to 12 age, they kind of are proving themselves. And at 12 to 15, they want to know what their place is in the world. How do they fit in? So this is all about the social being.
So there's this model. I am not going to use a microphone because I'm super loud. I assume you guys can hear me. Is that cool? Okay. But I actually, that other model is one. This is her first model of the aging human, and this is the one I love. She called it the bulb. And I really like this because of the visualness of that 0 to 6. They're just gathering everything. And maybe you remember your little one when they were young, just absorbing and finding joy in all of it, and learning how to move their bodies. And then we don't really see another level of growth like that until they hit puberty, which is what you guys are going through right now. Maybe you're at the beginning of it, maybe you're in the middle of it, but all of you are in some stage of the pubescent human, and it's a lot. And they're trying to figure out how to use their bodies again. They're trying to figure out who they are away from you. Just like at the early stages, they're having an explosion of language and reading and math. We're getting an explosion of language. It's just not always language we like, but they're trying on all of these hats, and it's the same. It's just later. It's just a little bit later, but they're still trying to figure out when is bedtime, and can I use this word without getting in trouble, and do I have to eat that? Because I bet I won't eat that. So same idea, just a little bit bigger.
And then you see after that 18 year, it levels off. It's not that we don't grow at all, but we don't have these explosive bursts of growth like this. So what we're looking at really is the job of the adolescent is to become that adult. That's what we are here for.
In Montessori training, this is coined the time to become. And so it's all about moving through that practice into what is the adult we will be.
So you may recognize some of these characteristics. They seem unsteady or unstable, becoming more and more sensitive. And we refer to it sometimes as we have one foot in the canoe and one foot in the dock. We really want that independence, but I don't want to pick what's for dinner. But I really, really should be able to do whatever I want and choose my own bedtime. But I don't know how to take my own showers or get myself in there. And so we're one foot in childhood and one foot in adulthood. And we're trying to bring them along to maybe get them on the shore or on the boat, whichever way you decide you want to go.
And in doing that, sometimes the boat gets really rocky. And I think that like the emotional sensitivity can be strange as a parent, because you're like, wait, we haven't been upset about this in a really long time, and now this is the thing. Or just remembering that everything is very unsteady and changing all the time.
And keeping in mind, what are their needs then? They need adults that they can trust, adults that support them. They need opportunities to make promises and keep them. That's really important. That's the confidence builder, especially to themselves. If I say I'm going to do this thing, I need to follow through. And every time I do that, I become that next, more full version of myself, that goal of valorization. I can contribute by the means of my own abilities. Nobody's doing it for me. Nobody's giving it to me. It's not fake. How can I do and participate in this society?
So Montessori observed, along with other contemporaries of her time, that humans, despite culture, location, they're going to have these consistent tendencies. There are 9 here, and we see these happening all the time. Now, that doesn't mean you complete one before you move on to the next, but rather this is what we see our adolescents working on all the time. It may look different at different ages, right? So orientation, for example, we may orient very differently than a 12-year-old. And sometimes we have all observed it is painful to watch 12-year-olds orienting together. Sometimes it's physically painful, right? They bump into each other, they knock stuff over. You're like, what are you doing? They really can't help it. They're learning how to move their bodies. And then how to be in space with others. The idea of self-preservation at this age, and that includes a whole host of things, not just physically, but also emotionally and mentally. Our kids, our adolescents are dealing with more than they've ever been asked to at any time, well, I won't say at any time in history because I don't know that. But I'm just gonna say they are bombarded with a whole lot of extra stuff. And self-preservation looks different than just the physical, I'm gonna eat, I'm gonna sleep, right? Now it includes this mental component and all of the other things that they're being exposed to in that. Communication, I could communicate effectively at this level, but now I want to fit in with this whole new group, and that takes new words, and that takes new actions, and that means I have to have this phone, Mom, or everybody's going to make fun of me forever. So there are all of these new modes and ways of going through these human tendencies, but every one of us are working on them in our own level.
Yeah, and the focus is how are we guiding them in that communication? How can we be effective with that? How can we get our needs met while still being civil to others, while still helping others get their needs met? And so the things on the right are the things that we're going to be pushing more of. And so what opportunities do they have to use their imagination and see those things become real? You know, how can they iterate? Again, that idea of valorization. When do they have a chance to repeat anything, and when will they repeat anything? That's a skill that we find today, coincidentally, helping to reteach. Like, yes, sometimes we have to repeat things because that's how we get good at them. So making sure that we are making a priority things like exactness and precision, rather than, well, it's hard, let's go off and do something else. And what if we don't? Intellectual dysregulation, or social dysregulation, or emotional dysregulation. And so we may find that we stay in the third plane or on the arc instead of that leveling off, instead of that fully realizing that full human capability.
And I want to take a second here to add a slide or add a conversation that we've never had before, really, because we have just gone through a historical moment in time where we have asked kids in the third plane of development, where they are social embryos, to not be that, and we've put these other things on them, right? So learning online, not being in community with your school, trying to learn how to self-regulate at home. That's really hard. That is not developmentally something we've asked before. And so I think, as a staff, we are constantly asking at the end of every day, what went well today, and what do we need to adjust? I think we are asking ourselves that more frequently now, because we are dealing with learners that have missed little pieces of this development because we've asked them to be at home and be safe. And so now, how do we not only complete this third plane, but go back and look at some of these gaps? And you guys might be seeing that at home too. Like, wow, I would think by this level you'd be doing that. You were not, because a shower wasn't that important when you didn't have to get out of your pajamas for 5 days. And so usually your peers would be kind of making fun of you for smelling bad, but we aren't there yet because you still got a mask on and they can't smell you. So go brush your teeth anyway, right? And so, I think that those are some of the things that we are seeing that have been missed.
So they form who they are through interactions with their environment. And that's something to let that sink in. We talk about the importance of environment. We were just talking about it yesterday. Willpower doesn't work. We need to change our environment if we want to change a habit, that sort of thing. But also we need to provide an environment in which they can explore and that we can provide guardrails for them. We try to keep it fairly wide, but we guide. And please stay in here. And some like to bang off of those guardrails more frequently than others. But it's that interaction with the environment, both the adults and then the things that are provided for them to learn that help them to develop that sense of self and also that sense of like just intellectual stimulation and curiosity.
So we ask ourselves,
what are those environments that they are interacting within?
And how has that changed in the last 5 years? It's huge, you guys.
Yeah. Montessori said this a long time ago. Mankind enslaved by its own environment because it remained weak in comparison with the environment. Our technologies have sped along faster maybe than our capability to keep up with it.
This was probably around like 1930.
You're right.
It's still super appropriate.
The environment that she was imagining for adolescents of our age is this one. She believed that the 12 to 14-year-old should be on a farm or should be running a bed and breakfast, maybe a hotel. But that idea of making and keeping promises, showing up for work and doing that work, being valorized through their own efforts. Someone came and stayed with me, someone ate that meal, that's the approval. It's not getting an assessment on a test. It's I carried out this thing and it was purchased and it was valorized because I could do it. I did it well. We try to provide some of these things. The environments that they're more likely to participate in are more like this. And the virtual world is not prepared for valorization of the individual in many ways. It's fantastic. It's really cool. But if we're talking about the purpose of social, moral, and spiritual development, this is not what Montessori had in mind. And in fact,
I think, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that we talk a lot in our space about natural consequences, and that, I've had several learners say to me even this week, why are you so strict? And I say, that is one way to look at it. I am going to be very direct with my language because it feels important to me that you understand precisely what the expectations are. And when we are in lands where you can turn a corner and you have a whole different thing, or you can turn it off, or you can walk away, or you can die and then you get back up again, we lose a little bit of that natural consequence. There isn't this directness. It's more ambiguous and it's harder to figure out when your brain hasn't practiced it yet.
And a lot of the things that they're asked to do, the whole point in many of these worlds is to do something that's in the real world would be illegal or immoral, or what Montessori would term deviant, her word, not mine. But they're really cool. So how does the real world compete this fictitious universe? What's being valorized? Is it that person? Because many of the things that are happening online are anonymous. We're not using our real names. So who's being valorized? I did really well in this game. Did you, or did your avatar? And is that a skill that carries over into the world where you have to interact with people face to face? Sorry, folks at home.
Is it better than the real world?
Or is it better than the real world? And maybe we're just not exposing or not offering some of the things that we would like for them to see. And that is our job, right? So not every opportunity has to be Canyonlands, although it's cool when it is. Sometimes we provide things for them in more like a study guide, right? So we create these boundaries, this real world for them to exist within, to create on their own every 3 weeks, creating something through their own efforts to share with other people.
And realizing that in that creation, sometimes you don't like it at the beginning. Sometimes it feels ugly or uncomfortable or not your thing. But getting to the end of it, going over the bridge and coming to the end, that is the process of valorization. And so this is my favorite, probably one of my very favorite Montessori lines. You get a lot of kids at this age who've been here since they're little. I get to choose. We're here. We can do whatever we want. That's why we're here. Actually, Dr. Montessori would have none of that. She absolutely believed in providing a prepared environment that you could explore. However, it has to be safe and it should not be disruptive to you or to others. Because if you are not displaying the freedom to make good choices, it is our responsibility to help narrow those choices so that you can be free within them. And so the line is to let the child do as he likes when he is, or she, not yet developed any powers of control, is to betray the idea of freedom. Because there is control there. There is the idea of community. There is practice of the human tendency. And when we haven't done that, or we're relearning that, we cannot just, sit all day and draw. Drawing can be part of what you do. But we are going to try new things because you have no idea what you're capable of.
We keep this quote on speed dial, both for the kids and for community members. I learn a lot about what we do here by people who have never stepped foot in this building.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the place where kids can do whatever they want. Ask them. Maybe not quite. So, you may have heard lamenting about the study guides. The study guide, for us, you can think of like a syllabus. For 3 weeks, this is what we're going to do. It's a guided inquiry.
This is the most recent one.
So it's an invitation to dive in to a central theme. So every time we start a study guide, we have one single central concept. Right now, we are doing one called order, purposefully broad. For 3 weeks, we will tackle the science side of this. And then for 3 weeks, we'll do the humanities side of this. It's just a tool that allows them to see, this is what we're going to do for 3 weeks. Here's some context. Here are some goals. This is the thing at the very end we want you to be able to do. That's how we start with these. We build this from the end. What do we want them to know how to do? Okay, let's work backwards from there. And these are the lessons, these are the projects they're going to have to do to get there.
How many of you guys, and you can put your virtual hand up, how many of you guys have already heard the terror of the study guide that they got on Monday? Literally no one? Oh, good, at least one. That makes me feel better.
Nailed it.
So, yeah, and you'll notice that in the first half of the year, we do scaffolding lessons as soon as these come out on Monday. They all got a calendar, like this is the 4-week spread. This is what we would do. Now, some of them were like, what's a study guide by the end of it? And some of them were like diligently writing down, this is what how I'm gonna plan. So hopefully this is becoming second nature, at least to our olders, and they're helping some of the youngers.
Throughout conferences, I know that we mention work ethic and time management, those two things over and over again. And that's really what the study guide is meant to help develop. We're not going to tell you every single day, every minute, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. When I come to work, that doesn't happen. And so these are transferable skills, and the time to practice those are right now. It is hard, but the better we develop them at a younger age, the more natural they become later on. Take our example over here, for example.
So in that, and you'll notice in the study guide, and you guys at home, we're looking at some paper copies, but hopefully your learner has shared them. They're broken up into 3 different elements. And this is Dr. Montessori's belief, from 3 to 6 on up, of the 3-period lesson. First period is always going to be direct instruction. So you can see here, this is a direct instruction lesson. Alan is talking about lining these things up. They're listening. They're getting the information provided to them. So you'll see our first period activities. We're going to give those to them. We're going to give them all those lessons. They don't have to worry about it. Second period is exploration. Sometimes this is done independently. Sometimes this is done with peers. And we call these our tray works, literally because there are trays and they have the work on them. But you'll also find them on the Google Classrooms, which we'll talk about in a second. And this is where they're exploring it. They're trying to figure out how does it work?
How can I take that first period information and do more research or experiment with it?
Yeah. And the third part is the third period lesson, which is called demonstration. And this is where you now show me, based on all of the things, we call it the show me part, based on everything that you've gained, what did you get from that, and what can you tell me? So all of you should have sent something in last Friday or heard about blueprints or 3D models or brochures. And this is them telling us about what they've gained over the week. So all of you should be familiar with what that looks like once. And that happens about every 3 to 4 weeks here on out.
We keep track of that in multiple ways. You have one in your hands here if you're in person. We also put everything that is on that paper, all of the first, second, and third period work, on the Google Classroom. We schedule those things so it doesn't overwhelm them on the first day. They don't get them all at once, but it'll drop an assignment tomorrow. It'll drop one on Thursday. It'll drop one on Friday. With the due dates, they have access to this no matter where they are. If you have questions about it, ask them to open up the classroom and show you.
And to be fair, where's the choice in this, right? Like that's something I keep, when we were in training and starting this process, where's the choice? I want them to have choice. Well, a lot of these trays have options for how you're going to complete the task. And once the trays are out there, you can do them in any order you want. So you can show up at 9 in the morning, 9:15, and say, you know what, I really like doing math first. I'm going to do my math follow-up first. And then I'm going to go get a tray, and then I'll hit my reading. And then I'm not even going to touch my vocab today. I'll do that on Wednesdays. That's our ideal, is that, yes, you have all of this work, but you get to put it together. So it's not so much you're choosing whatever you want to do, but rather when you're going to do it or maybe how you're going to complete it. And so that's kind of where the choice comes in. And once this is all lit up, which it will be by the end of the week, most of these trays will now be lit up. Then in the next few weeks, kids can pick and part. Like, I'm going to do this part of this tray and turn that in.
And that's that organization of work. Like, how are you going to get what you need to get done today? How are you going to get it done? And then the third period works almost always offer choice. There may be 3 different ways or 4 different ways that you can provide evidence of what you learned for those 3 weeks. And we try to hit on all the multiple intelligences. So if someone is very kinesthetic and they love to build models, go for it. They want to make a movie, they want to write a play, do a skit, go for it. They want to write essays, sometimes those are an option. Presentations are frequently a part of it, almost every time. So that's built in, there's choice in that as well. We have a number of record-keeping ways that we go about doing that in addition to Google Classroom. So we also keep them on track. You know, if we see a bunch of yellow bars, like, hey, come chat with me. Tell me about this work. So this is more our own.
Yeah, and when you get to these larger study guides, people at home and here, you might start to get emails from the advisor. Look, we're in week 3. We now have 2 assignments turned in. This is going to take some time at home. How can you support your learner at home? We don't want them working at home till 10 o'clock every night. That is never our goal. Please go play at home. Use school for school time. But if you are playing a lot at school, you might have to use the school time at home. And so just finding that balance is the goal. And some weeks are going to be, this week is hard.
It's a lot.
Then next week, I might just get a play after school. I don't know. So it's learning that balance and feeling okay within that as well. So if your learner's checklist starts to look real empty, you guys won't see this. This is what we all keep. You might get an email from Louisa. Hey, noticing this. Your learner says they're really stressed out. Could be because they haven't started. How can we help get that done?
I would also be stressed if I was him or her. I say that a lot.
This is appropriate stress. Now what are we going to do?
Questions about study guides before we move to our next little topic?
Anything online?
Think of it like a syllabus, but it's not sequential. First period doesn't mean I'm doing that first. We may have a first period lesson today, and then also next Monday, and then next Thursday. It's just an introductory lesson. All good? All right. Occupations. This is the other way that we provide opportunities, or that idea of valorization, where consequences are natural. I broke the screwdriver. Looks like you're not going to have a screwdriver today. Sandpaper's all gone. Did you order sandpaper last week? No. You're right. Sandpaper's all gone.
We have a cafe. You forgot to push send on the order to pick up the groceries, and your mom went to pick up the groceries, and now she's maybe a little upset because there weren't any groceries, and now we can't serve the people because it's Wednesday, and I guess we'll need to write a note and do better next time. And that's the part of it, right? That is, and they become crestfallen. Like, can't you just go to the grocery store and get it? No, I can't do that. So David Kahn is a contemporary Montessori guide who writes and helps to work out of Hershey Montessori, which is a school, and I'm trying to think, Lori, somebody is his counterpart. But they work through Hershey Montessori, which is in Ohio, which is an amazing middle school program. Occupations will be a source of meaningful work that will be valued by the community itself, work that challenges both the mind and body, work that is recognized as legitimate by the culture, work that has economic validity, work that is made noble by being done with integrity and passion. Engagement leads to a sense of ownership and stewardship, which is the big one there, making sure to do things for the next group that comes along, even if it looks different. And our occupations, this will be our 4th year of them, or 5th.
In this format.
In this way. Each year, each subgroup, so we have textiles, gardening, cafe or cooking, and building. They can write for a loan, and they get about a $500 loan, which came from the year before's money. They just don't know that's where it came from. And then they work to pay it back. And last year, on top of that, we made an extra over $2,000, which paid for their end of the year going out trip. And we told them, this pays for the bus, which is $900. This pays for your admission to Deems Lake, which is $3 a person. This pays for part of your lunch. Y'all still need to bring $1 because it costs more than $2,000. But they earned that.
But it's a good time to talk about the difference between a fundraiser and an occupation. Occupations, the microeconomy feeds itself. When we have those broken sandpaper rolls, or we have broken saw blades, we have to pay for that ourselves. So we had to sell some stuff last month or the month before. We're doing the work because the work is good and because we're learning things. At the beginning, every year, we get lots of questions about, this is child labor. I'm not getting paid. Like, well, maybe. You're learning a lot. You're getting a lot of free training. And then as we get to the end of it, we don't hear that anymore because they just are into building things and making things and cooking and doing all this. Valued by the community itself, you should be here on a day when cafe is supposed to happen and then doesn't, which has only happened once, twice. But when the high schoolers expect there's going to be food and there's no food, you hear, yeah, they value it for sure.
And it's really amazing. This year, the group decided to make the same thing every week, which that's the first year I've ever had a cafe decide to do that. And people were like, what? You're already out of the Rice Krispie treats, but they're the best. And so that whole discussion about quality control and consistency and making something that's worth the money is a huge deal. And I know Louisa can probably speak to podcasting. That was a hard one because when people don't pull their weight.
Things that happen. If we don't record the video, then we don't make a video.
And it's really that, those are the lessons that really stick with them. And we're super formal about that process on Wednesdays.
But there's no red pen and nobody got an F. They know they didn't do a good job if they didn't do a good job. Nobody has to tell them. And we've all been there. We grow into that. Somebody comes and tells me, hey, that was great. And I know that wasn't my best. That doesn't feel good. And so no one has to say, where's lunch? You know, you did terrible in lunch. Well, I know, I forgot to push send.
And so in order to make that process the becoming part as a staff, Wednesdays are really different. And you might hear your learners say, I don't need to go to school on Wednesday. It's not important. In our minds, it's probably the most important day, or I believe that to be true. It is your work day. You come dressed for work. You're in the studio about a half hour, and then you go to work. And each of us have a clock-in process and a morning meeting. So they all log in. They clock out for lunch. They clock back in after lunch. We have a quality control management. And if you're in there eating the food, you're out of the kitchen. you got a different job, you're on trash duty now, right? And the kids get really serious about that. They don't mess around when you're doing the thing you shouldn't be. If you come, I mean, they take their dress so seriously with coming to work, or at least ours do. Like if you know, they learned they're supposed to not wear nail polish, and they bought nail polish remover just in case someone wore it. Because there are all these scaffolding lessons in the beginning, right? Like, this is how you chop something. This is how you use an oven. This is how you use a chop saw. This is how you use a spade. And this is how you use the computer equipment. And if you can't pass these tests, then you need to go back to human resources, HR, and reapply for a different job because you can't be in this one.
Which has totally happened. We have them do a job skills inventory. Like, oh, you signed up for this thing that's working with your hands, and everything you answered here says you like to sit behind a screen. Like, why would you sign up to go make things with your hands? Let's reassign you. Let's see if you can apply somewhere else. What's your role? Not my role. I think we know our role.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting. What's your role? Be supportive, right? Ask questions. Lots of questions. Specific questions. Not, what'd you do today? What was occupations today? Have you thought about what occupation you're going to do? What first period lesson did you have? Because if you ask me what I did today, I'm going to do the same thing. I don't know. I did lots of stuff today. Or maybe I did nothing. What'd you have for lunch? Hopefully they're packing it themselves. Cool. We must become masters of failure, Montessori says. What are you willing to let go of? What are you going to let them fail at? Mismatched socks? Some parents draw the line there. Others are like, just be dressed. I don't care. This is the time for that, though, right? If they're going to fail, let them fail right now while they have all of us. Look around the room, like all of us to care about them failing. Don't send them off to college or out into the world and let them fail there for the first time. We got to get comfortable with that. You got to be bad at things a lot before you get good at them. So do it now.
Being consistent. You guys are going to hear things about us as staff members. Oh, Louise is so mean, or Alan always is making us do this hard, stupid math, or Emily screams at us constantly. And I'm like, guys, you don't know if I'm screaming. I just have a really loud voice. It's even louder when I'm screaming. But consistency is important. We hope that you hear that we are the same each day, because our job is to provide a prepared environment so that your learner can land. And hopefully each of you guys can find the space, the wherewithal, and the strength, because it sure takes a lot of strength to be consistent at home. If we said you're going to take a shower every night, you're going to take a shower every night, even on the nights when you want to fight with me or whatever it is. If we said Thursdays are the day that you're going to open up your Google Classroom and let me see what's due, then Thursdays are the day that I have to make time for it. I'm not going to choose a Wednesday because I know I do things Wednesday nights. But Thursdays, I'm going to set an alarm in my phone to remember to be consistent for my kiddo, because otherwise I don't mean to. They look like they're doing great. It's still important that they know that I'm going to come back to it even when they're doing great, or because they're doing great. That consistency matters. And if you want to bring to the table a different option, get your ducks in a row and then bring it to the table and let's talk about it. And that's kind of the next part. After you're consistent enough, those things will start to come up naturally, I think.
When you're consistent, you find you just don't have to have the fight. No, this is the thing. Always, this is what we do. Just like this. Dispassionately, just move on.
Some people can do it dispassionately. Some people just have passion oozing out their pores. Okay.
Yes, invite them into the conversation. We have definitely found that they are harder on themselves sometimes than we would be. All right, what do you think your consequence should be? I should have to give up my phone for a month, and I should have to, whoa, slow down.
So Louisa and I took a course this summer called Positive Discipline, which has really been helping to guide a lot of what we're all doing in terms of like setting expectations for the learners and trying to make peaceful environments. And a couple of the things they really brought up were the 3 R's, right? When you're having a natural consequence, that word, that term can be a little loosey, just be careful with it. So really bringing up the idea of, okay, is that a realistic consequence for the behavior? Is it relevant? Like, it doesn't make sense that if you're sneaking food in the middle of the night, I'm going to ground you from your phone. Those things aren't related. Or if you're not taking a shower, that I'm going to say no anime or something. Like, they're not related. Or maybe they are. Maybe they're watching too much anime and they don't want to take a bath. I don't know. But is it realistic? Is it relevant? Is it respectful to everyone in the house, right? It could be that you really need them to have their phone at the end of the day because that's how you communicate when they go to the other parent's house or when they go to their friend. So it's not helpful for you to not have that. You have to put a parameter on it. And then the last one is it helpful? Is it going to help you become a better adult? And if it doesn't answer that criteria, it doesn't really feel like a logical consequence. And so keeping that in mind as you help them to guide their own conversation.
When we say begin with the end in mind there, not in a patronizing way. Like, when you're an adult, are you going to wear pajamas? Well, maybe, but we're talking down to them also. And so maybe that's not the fight. Maybe just what do you want for yourself as you get older? Let's talk about that. What are the things that we do to start to develop those habits right now so that becomes real? Success should never be a surprise. I love that quote. People who are successful are never surprised by it because they did all the little things that made them successful. And so that's what we want. We want their outcome to be, yes, I'm in control of that.
And I think when we talk about keeping the goals in mind, that there's a balance there and that there's responsibility and being authentic to who you are. I cannot be someone I'm not here at school. I am who I am. But I use this analogy a lot, is that we are really dealing with little unbaked cakes, right? Little sweet cupcakes, and they're in the oven, and every day we just turn up the temperature a little bit. And sometimes by the end of their 8th grade year, they are fully formed cupcakes. A lot of times they're 20 and they're showing back up and, oh my God, I loved the islands and that was so great. And you're like, oh, it just took a little bit longer in the oven. So not expecting that everything's going to happen right now, but if you don't turn up the heat a little bit each day, you will actually never cook the cake. So yeah, keeping that in mind.
Yeah, masters of failure. We used to talk about the helicopter parent, but now it's definitely the snowplow parent. It is hard for your kid to go through something hard. Harder for us. I have one in Arizona, went through college, went through hard things, and it's hard. It just is. I know I just said hard a bunch of times, but it's painful. Got to let them do it.
And it is hard when they call you and they say, help me do this. Yeah.
Now we're really worried about the snowplow parent. I just want it to be better for them than it was for me. It is. It will be. But let them figure it out. Let's not make them fail and not help them. This is the time. They can do hard things. They can do so many more hard things than they know.
And I think as a parent, figuring out what's the hard thing you can let them do right now, right? Because sometimes it might seem disproportionate to their reaction may seem disproportionate to what you thought it was going to be. You are that angry over having to go back to school tomorrow because you forgot a project. It's not a big deal. Just take it in tomorrow. That might be the hardest thing they've done for a year. I had a learner very upset about forgetting they couldn't get the TV to work. And so they absolutely just gave up and wouldn't give the presentation and felt just crestfallen, even though I know they'd done the work. That is the hardest thing that learner has encountered in a very long time. And I had to let them experience it. If they didn't want to pick up and move on, I had to say, okay, that's your choice. That's really hard. But choosing what are the moments where I can let that happen. And then, okay, I'm actually not going to let you go to that party because I actually do know that that's not a safe place for you. So I'm not snowplow. I'm just saying no, right? And that's okay too. Your kids, but figure out where you can say yes and where you can let it go.
And of course, we have to acknowledge that doesn't mean ignore chronic things. If there are underlying issues, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about providing that support, giving that safe space, giving that guidance, but also choosing those items that are hard and letting them work through it. Discontent is okay. You can be unhappy. We get over it pretty quickly.
And being unhappy is really different than watching your kid be depressed. And so if your learner really is experiencing some mental anguish and you're seeing some of those signs, there are lots of avenues for help in that way too. And this is the age that that also hits. So I think that that's important to be said.
Questions, comments, snide remarks. What is the secret of life?
Observations that you guys are experiencing that are helpful for us, because you guys have been, and those of you online, I don't know where to look. You guys have been with them more than we have in the last few years, or equal to. And so just curious, what observations have you been experiencing that could be helpful for us as well? And what did we miss in that? Well, I think we're pretty much perfect in every way. I'm hearing.
Go us.
Let's give myself a little pat on the back.
Did that sound familiar at all?
That is that's a big question right now. Typically, conversations are happening about their sexual lives, their puberty growth. All of that is happening all the time at tables when we're not hearing it. Formally, we typically have those classes every other year. We do use some of the material and lessons from the Our Whole Lives curriculum to guide certain things. We have a biology unit this year, so I think we do talk about human anatomy. But as far as we don't really call them relationship seminars at this level. We call it puberty education, and we talk a lot about like what's happening within their body. And we'll let you guys know if that is on this year's rotation. And then we'll have a class or a meeting where we can show up and have that discussion at that time. I will tell you, conversations about their identity, their sexuality, and their personal growth are happening all the time. And it is really important that you and your family talk about your expectations and beliefs as a family at home all the time, because they are hearing it and they are curious what your morals and values and expectations are. So have those conversations as much as you can at home with what you feel like needs to be said too. I hope that answered your question. That was Aaron. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks,
I appreciate you guys.
Camping is coming up. Some of you might be like, oh my gosh, I've never sent my kid away, or I haven't sent my kid away on a school sanctioned event in years, and what are you doing? So we're gonna break it in easy. It's one night. Yeah, you may have noticed that we didn't ask for parent volunteers. We did that on purpose because sometimes it's important at this level for kids to be out of their comfort zone. And like we told them, it's barely 24 hours. We're tipping our toe in. We'll probably go on a longer camping trip later this year. It's a pretty massive park. There are lots of different places and spaces to feel safe in. And the campground that we're staying in, they have indoor sleeping. They can choose to have a tent outside if that feels best for them.
Not this year. We don't.
I'm going to be in a tent.
You're going to be in a? Okay.
So, well, we can talk about that.
Yeah, we'll meet on that.
So anyway, the facility is really amazing and offers a very safe, confined space for them to be in, and they have access to lots of stuff. Should they bring their phones and call you when they feel nervous at 1 o'clock in the morning? No. Actually, there's no reception in that little hollow. But if they are really feeling sick or something is wrong, they will let one of their advisors know, and we will drive up to the top of the hill and call you right away. They also have that old landline that we can call out of. It's right in the kitchen. So we really encourage that you do not, if they absolutely have to have a phone because they're going to a different parent's house or whatever, I am happy to keep it locked up in my car or in the kitchen so that it stays safe and not wet and not damaged, and it just resolves a lot of issues. So if you have more questions about the campus trip or things like that specifically, reach out to your advisor next week. We'll be sending an RSVP form to make sure that we know everybody that's coming. Anything else that we can support you guys with?
It was, do we provide folders for their backpacks, or should they get their own? And I answered, that's a great question. We have lots of organizations. I did note that ours are mostly dated and are fashionable teams' opinions. So I would just consult your learner on whether they were willing to use our old things or if they want to pursue other options. But we have tons of materials for them. If they just suck it up, it's always an option.
Some learners, however, though, lose their folders 2 to 3 times a week. And so, yes, at some point we will ask them to get their own. And a lot of learners are like, actually, I want one huge, they used to be called trapper keepers. I don't know what they're called now. Sorry. And they were like Lisa Frank with the little cats on and stuff, but whatever. Now they have like different names, and some learners like to have very specific colored pins with specific notebooks with specific binders that go in with specific. That's great. And if you're able to do that and you want to do that for your learner, they can have those things. Yes, I'm so glad. And did you also have the Lisa Frank ones with the little cat and the horse and stuff?
And Tommy Reader earlier during the camping conversation said, make everyone sleep outside.
We do that all summer long.
Yeah.
And so with this many, I think maybe we'll use the bunkhouse.
It does help to keep them contained and safe, and it has
does.
a bathroom and like all of those things. So.
But we have opportunities for those who want to sleep on the ground.
That's right. They have a wonderful kitchen, so your learner will eat unless they are terrified to eat outside of the home, but they will only therefore miss like 1 or 2 meals, and so we'll send them home to you really hungry if they can't eat. I think the option is probably going to be pasta of some sort. Usually pasta goes over well, and we have gluten-free options, and we have vegetarian options and spaghetti options. That's probably going to be what dinner is, because it's very easy to please a lot of people.
They'll eat because we like to eat.
Cool. So I think we'll log off because I know that's about an hour. And I would say you guys are going to want to get home, but you guys are already at home.
Give you the rest of your night back.
So I guess I'll go home. Bye, everybody online.
Thanks,
Good
y'all.
to see, not see ya. Thanks.